tonight, I'm sure you are at least somewhat interested in what I'm having to say, or you wouldn't be here. But you're really here, I know, because you love this church. You have walked a long road, some longer than others, but this is an important event. Every time in the life of the church is an important crossroad, right? No matter what. Some seem to be more definitive after we have moved through them than others, but this one is of real special import. Again, tonight we're going to use a format that I'll call more in line like a fireside chat, appropriate for a winter's night, wouldn't you say? Or a town hall type meeting. We'll be dealing with subjects and issues that need some decisions made about them, but we're not making those in this meeting tonight. This is a chance for me to kind of tell you what I have come to experience about you, my perceptions of where we are, and even some recommendations about where we might go in the future. I am a transitional pastor by trade, but before I ever decided to be a transitional pastor, I was a disciple of Jesus Christ. That is first and foremost in everything I do. I'll say that a little bit differently, then we're going to have a word of prayer, and then we're going to move on. You know, some people are Lutherans, and some people are Methodist, and some people are Pentecostals, and a few of us are Presbyterians. But before I was a Presbyterian, I was a disciple. And this disciple decided to be a Presbyterian. He could have made the decision to be something else, but I consciously made a decision to express my discipleship as a Presbyterian, and then as that evolved to become a minister of the Word and Sacrament. So I'm glad to be part of our Presbyterian family. I was birthed by the Presbyterian Church. The cradle roll was where I was lodged, and the wonderful ladies who kept that nursery spoon-fed me, changed my diapers, and gently nudged me out into the toddler hallway as I left the nursery at First Presbyterian, Cherville, North Carolina, NC. And so I really wanted to be an elementary school teacher, so I did all of my undergraduate work in early childhood education, with the ultimate destination for my journey being to become an elementary school principal. And I wanted to do that because at that point in time, there were simply not many men involved in elementary education. I loved children, and I still do. And as Jim Lee knows well, the best time I normally spend is with the children's hour during church. It's the most fun time for me. So with that much, then let's continue with a word of prayer. We'll get into the heart of the matter. Let's pray. God, you are our anchor in the midst of all kinds of storms. And so now we hitch our tethering lines to you. For indeed there have been some challenging waters for the Georgetown Presbyterian Church, but you have seen fit to hold us in every high and stormy gale and to help us find our landing places next to the harbor, just beyond Front Street, on this particular site. So as we bring to bear those things that matter to us tonight, we already enlist your presence, that you might hold us and keep us and watch over us. For it is in the name of Christ that we pray. Amen. Amen. 45 minutes is not going to be enough. I know that, so I'm going to talk fast. Why a State of the Church presentation? That's a good question. Well, we already know that the State of the Union Address is what a POTUS does as an attempt to share his or her understanding of the condition of the country and what he or she plans to do with policies about much needed concerns that this country faces. That's precisely what I'm attempting to do tonight, but not as POTUS. I've seen that job. I don't want that job. They wouldn't have me at that job. Not a minister I know. Georgetown Presbyterian Church is my 7th official interim, or what we are now referring to more times than not, transitional ministry. It's the new word that is out there. That's why I have used the nomenclature bridge transitional pastor. I'm here as a bridge for the moment, getting us from losing a head of staff until we can find a transitional pastor. I know that sounds a bit strange, but that's exactly what it is, and it is important for me to keep that in front of us all the time. It may very well be that I will become your transitional pastor, but that has not yet been determined. I asked the IPNC, as I have said to some of you before, please let me be on board for 6 months. This is the first time I've taken on full-time responsibility since open heart surgery, and I want to be safe about this moment rather than sorry. They understood, welcomed me with open arms, and so did this session. And what a wonderful governing body this session is. I know more things than I care to express about living with churches in transition. It's not always fun. And I have spent many sleepless nights at home asking this question. What in the world were you doing deciding you wanted to be a transitional pastor of this church? Now don't fret, I was not talking about Georgetown, at least not yet. But, and I've learned through my experience what things work best most of the time leading congregations through transitional ministries. Each church is different. Different dynamics at work, different personalities with which to work, different ideas about what's best for the church. They've been different sizes. They've been in different areas, rural, city, metropolitan, marked by different economic systems, different educational levels. That's how, excuse me, they have been different. But here is how they and you are similar. I am yet to meet a church in transition that has not wanted to form a pastor nominating committee at least by the end of my 2nd month being here. That happened really in my 3rd week here. So you're no exception to the rule. I understand that. I recognize how important it is to get on with the business. Some have conducted recent mission studies in their journeys. Some have not. Some have been willing to work with their presbyteries, and some have not. Tonight, my approach will be to share with you what I think are your next best steps. Those words were chosen carefully. What I think are your next best steps. Further, my suggestions will be based on what I have learned and discovered about you during my 7 months with you. Those first 5 as your parish associate for pastoral care. That's where I really got most of my stuff about you. Because in that time frame, as I have said, I was in 40 of your homes. That's a lot of places to be in a 5-month period of time, and you weren't afraid to tell me how you were feeling about this and that and these and those. And they include these 2 months as your bridge transitional pastor. 2 months. It's hard to believe that you hired me to begin my work on Monday, November the 13th. Those 2 months have passed by quickly. That's 4 more months on my current contract. I just note that with you. Not only do I have on-the-job training, and I'm not tooting my horn, but what I am saying is it is important that you feel like you've got somebody at the wheel who knows at least some things about transitional ministries. I have had 3 levels of certification in transitional ministry programs. 2 at Montreat Conference Center, level 1 and level 2. They were wonderful. And my most recent certification has come through what is known as Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, though, and that's a PCUSA seminary. But they are no longer hosting those certification trainings for transitional ministers. It has been moved over to a website, and I offer it to you tonight for your opportunity to peruse and look through. It's called the School of Global Citizenry. And there are many more topics available in that program than just for ministers of the Word and Sacrament. I completed that training on the Thursday of the week I started here with you on Monday. Now, at any point in time you have a question, I've said this before, but I'll say it again, or you want to make a comment, I welcome those. And if I'm not yet calling on it, and you have a burning question about something I have said, then please raise your hand. If not, that serves as my introduction. And we're moving on to really talk about Georgetown Presbyterian's history a little bit. Now, I certainly do not intend with you to rehearse your history, and I've only known you for 7 months. That would be ridiculous. But there are some things about your history that you have identified with me tens of times, and I feel like I already am in touch with them. And I have lived with you through them, sometimes more at a distance than I have been actually here. In 2020, a tsunami hit our church that the Center for Disease Control called COVID. Its wave hit me again the beginning of last week. I've had 4 COVID shots. I still contracted COVID. I think it's because I found it down here somewhere and I hadn't been in this part of the world before. For the first time in my life, this church and other churches stopped saying things like Please come visit us. Oh, you ought to come and be part of our church family, only to have us officially say, now don't you come. Stay away. Our doors will not be open. Can you imagine the ramifications of that kind of message to the people? You surely can, because you're living with them, and so am I right now. It was during that time and up until this moment that we lost 3 full-time staff members. Wow. What demanding losses. Some of you smile about that, or at least you did when you were telling me about it. Some of you had hearts that were broken. I heard those lamentings coming from you too. Let's be clear. Not everybody in this place feels the same way about those particular losses. That makes transitional ministry challenging. They've left their impact on us till this very moment, and they will continue to. In 2023, we lost our head of staff. I lost my head of staff. I was a subordinate on that staff at that point, and had spent 5 months serving under Corey's leadership. He was nothing but absolutely wonderful to me. But I listened to some of you out there, and not all of you felt exactly that way. No dwelling on those issues, but they are issues that impact us, and they bear their own fruit or lack thereof in our church life right now. All of those things have caused a lot of folks who used to be part of us to no longer be here with us, right? And we're not sure exactly what's happening with all those folks. These are adults, their youth, and their children. That just about captures all of us, doesn't it? Their losses have caused us pain, discomfort, and a lot of us just simply are wondering as to whether or not these people are ever going to come back, right? That's what you've been telling me. Others have reportedly gone to other churches. Some have even joined other communities of faith. Some remain in the shadows. And I don't mean that negatively. We just don't know exactly how to define the environment in which they're living and existing at this moment. Many of you have expressed concerns about families and children and youth. And all of these things have rent our hearts asunder. This is Georgetown Presbyterian Church, but it's not all it is. And I want to address some other parts too. To me, on the surface, these losses sound like impossibilities for Georgetown Presbyterian Church to overcome. But look around this room, children of the living God. There are lots of resources, lots of people and energy ready to be used. I'm looking at you. I'm doing this thinking, aha, there's some good folks out there ready to go. And you better be, or I'm certainly not the transitional pastor you're looking for. There are simply too many resources and people in this place to settle for the impossibility option. Everybody with me so far? Any questions? We'll move on. Staff-wise, we have made some recent hires to help fill the gaps of those folks we've lost, right? In areas that needed our attention. Music, where's Rodney? Is he still here? He's upstairs, he's doing his thing. Thank God for Rodney. Rodney is and I have said this in his presence, Rodney's different than what we had. But different is good. I'm not like what you had. Go ahead and say it, but different is good. There you go. That's what I had in mind. And how about food services people? Did they put on a good show tonight? And I want to thank you, Ellen. Yes. And where's you know that other part of you?
Guy with the beanie on?
Thank you so much. We are so glad you are here. Thank you. I don't have a gift certificate for you. I'm sorry. And pastoral care. I've been part of that program and I still am. But there's an area that still needs attention and you've been quick to tell me about it. And that's children and youth. I want to address that need right now before going any further. When I arrived on the scene in mid-November as your temporary head of staff, I discovered a children youth search committee in need of support. That's no commentary made about what was or wasn't. It's what I found. I committed myself to being a support person for that committee. And since November, give or take some of it, time and investment has been invested by Emmy Sawyer and Mark Nash, along with me as moderators of that committee. They've been at this task a long time, and I want you to know they have taken their task seriously, but it's not been an easy go. They need our support. I am your visual representation of that support. The IPNC, that's the Interim Pastor Nominating Committee, Johnny Weaver, Doug Patton, Scott Sawyer, and Penny Stokes Hall, those four people were clear with me in the beginning that work needed to be done in this area since we had found ourselves filling those other positions that were desperately needed. I'm going to stop. What time is it?
6:30.
6:30? Good. I'm going to make it. I don't know if there'll be any time for questions, but I'm going to make it. I know that much. So, suffice it to say that Zoom meetings, telephone calls, emails, text, meeting with the committee, we have been engaged at the task. Mark, thank you. Emmy, I know you're out in the hallway. Thank you. We love you and appreciate what it is you are doing. Thanksgiving and Christmas schedules made a lot of progress difficult to navigate, but we managed to work ourselves through to this point. Soon, and very soon, sounds like an Andre Crouch song, doesn't it? Soon and very soon, we'll be bringing appropriate church entities a few recommendations moving forward. We're making some headway behind the scenes. So again, please keep this group in your prayers. They are working. In fact, you are encouraged to encourage Mark and Emmy. I would suggest that you not complain. That's my next best step forward for you and for me. I am sure they will welcome your conversations. Any questions about that part? Just how about this part? Maybe the battery went bad. I'm sure that's exactly what did happen. The battery probably went out in this microphone. Well, I can speak up because I'm not going to have to speak a whole lot longer, but I'm not going to move any closer because I do not want to contaminate you at all. Any questions about the youth and children matter that any of you would like to raise? I welcome those if you have them. My attempt is to try to bring you up to speed and answer whatever questions you might have had about those matters. Now, the last part of my presentation for tonight is how did we intentionally, during those losses of staff members, attempt to address how best to move forward somewhere in the years 21, 22, and so on. I now turn my attention to the work of the Strategic Planning Committee. Their work, their implementation, their love for this congregation is beyond reproach. I have only one word for the work they did. Excellent. They were committed to trying out as best they could to move us forward in the midst of a very difficult and challenging time. But they were focused on particular areas of concern. And now I want to turn my attention a little bit deeper into that work. I have met with leadership of the Strategic Planning Committee. I have spent many hours studying their reports and their recommendations. It was not a joy ride to go through it. I fell asleep on my pillow more than once doing that. But that's the way reports are, right? I mean, that's the give and take of the mix. Here are two takeaways I want to share with you from the Strategic Planning Committee and its work. First will be a summary of what the report addressed. Secondly, I want to share with you a summary of what the report did not address. And I've had superficial communication with folks on that group, and they recognized that they were addressing particular things, but not all things. The transitional pastor's work is to address all things before we can move forward. What did the report address? These are my words that I have picked up through conversations and my study of the report. Here's the first thing. They addressed staffing options and suggestions to meet the needs of the staff departures in 2022. That was a major piece of their pie. Thanks be to God. And if it sounds like I'm fluffing you up, I'm not. It's the truth. I have been in churches that couldn't crawl up out of a hole like that. But you had talented, caring individuals and a session that navigated that journey. That's one. Here's the second thing the report addressed. The financial budget implications for those new hires going forward, so we could somehow have an understanding of what it was going to cost in the midst of all of these changes. Wonderful. Here's the third thing that report addressed. Directions to increase volunteers serving on sessional committees. And that is still needed right now. That's why I was doing this earlier. I've got some people, we need some hay. That's enough of that. I'll preach that sermon on another day when I've got more than 7 minutes left. Here's item number 4 that the report addressed. Recommendations that we offer training for the committees of the church as to their leadership and their responsibility. That is a biggie, and I have taken it on as my role to meet that need. I have been meeting with committee heads, moderators, leadership teams since we have made these assignments. We've not made it through all of these committees, but we're getting closer to accomplishing our task. That was the 4th thing. Each of these areas, what it addresses and what it does not address, has 6 items. Here's item number 5. What I think may be the most powerful part of their report. They called for a season of preparation, renewal, and prayer for the work that needed to be done to be accomplished under the leadership and empowerment of the Spirit. To me, that might be their number 1 hit on the charge. And then number 6, they called us to revitalize and enhance the role of session as to its administrative and spiritual oversight of the committees and the congregation. Whew! I could use one Wednesday night, 6 weeks in a row, dealing with all of those. That's what the report addressed as far as my readings were concerned. Any questions about that? Here's what the report did not address. And this is in no way slighting it, meaning the SPC, the Strategic Planning Committee. It's just acknowledging that theirs was a particular focus. And only that. And they did it beautifully. What it did not address: the qualities, skills, and talents needed by the church's next pastor. So you're looking at the one you got. You should be able to say, well, we know we don't want that. That's for certain. But that is an important issue that a congregation must examine before she puts together a PNC. How does she find that out? By asking all of you. Here's number 2. It did not address completely how COVID, staff departures, and additional staff members have and are impacting the life and ministry of the church. It was not designed to do that. But these are the issues that we're living with now, and we need to examine them to see if the model that we are living with is the model or the paradigm that will help us as we look to our future mission for Christ in this low country area. Here's the third thing. It did not address the identity of this congregation. In particularly, I'm raising these questions. Who are we now? How have we changed in these last 18 months to 6 years since we called our past permanently installed pastor? I can tell you right now, I can't keep up with you hardly from Sunday to Sunday. I know we need to spend some time asking ourselves, who are we? Who do we want to be as servants of the living God? Is what we're doing the best way for us to get it done? We've got to spend some time asking those questions. Here comes number 4 of 6. We need to identify what the future mission of this church is. Is it still in line with our mission statement that we have in our bulletin every Sunday? Have we, in fact, so changed through COVID and because of these staff departures, have we so changed that our mission is changing? We may determine it's exactly what it was. Okay? But we need to look at that before we call a minister, and we can't even tell the minister what it is we're wanting to do, much less who we are. Number 5, what are our current strengths and current needs of the church? Not what they were 10 weeks ago or 10 years ago. That's an important matter, because what you're going to try to do eventually is to put together a form that says this is what we need. And we're going to be looking for a person who has these skills and gifts to meet these particular needs. We've got to identify them. And here comes number 6. We need to review the current programs to see if they're effective or if they have spent their time with us. My guess is we've got some things we're doing that we're tired of doing. We need some fresh blood injected into some of those things. There's some wonderful ideas that are out there. We need to kind of spread out the envelope a little bit further and see what else there is out there for us. So those are the 6 things. Look, I've got these all in written form. I'm going to have these available. You can take them at home, put them on your bed stands, and go to sleep reading them at some point in the future. Now, my last comment will be this. As the next best step forward, it is my opinion that we should agree to combine the excellent work of the SPC with the upcoming transitional pastor's work to complete a study in those areas not covered by the Strategic Planning Committee. This study should and could take place beginning fairly immediately. It will be similar to the work of the SPC in this regard, hosting some meetings. Now I know, because I've already heard you, surely we're not going to go through that, or we're not going to go through that for the things we've already covered. That would be a waste of time, right? But if we are going to effectively do what needs to be done, then it is this transitional pastor's suggestion that we really ought to do that. And I'm telling you, I think it's going to take about 6 months of dedicated work to get it accomplished. Now, that's provided we can get a lot of stuff done before we ever get to the summer schedule. Because you know what happens in the summer schedule, right? A lot of us will just depart. That's okay, because that's life. Transitional pastors, sessions, have to understand that. So with that, I'll just stop and say, you've been listening to me. What have you heard as we prepare to break away? I'm sorry. I know we're a little bit beyond time, but okay. And if any of you need to boogie, I understand. Yes, question?
What we haven't heard is we've heard that the youth and the children are important, and I know they are. But if you look around, most of the people in this room have gray hair, and we're the ones that support this church.
Okay.
And we lost our senior group of perennials.
But the Congregational
And I
Care
miss
Committee
that.
is considering that and is trying to bring it back.
All right, let me
Under a
suggest,
different
I think that's a fair and reasonable statement. It was not my intention to leave it out, but, and I didn't intentionally, I felt like congregational care was already engaged in that, and the wonderful work that Linda Puckett and her staff of people are doing are the beginning of that groundwork.
Right.
So, wonderful question, and it would certainly give us additional meat to chew on, especially if there was needed work to be done in those areas. So I welcome that question and your concern, Brody. Thank you very much.
I'm not the chair of that committee.
I didn't mean you were. I was thinking about congregational care lunches. I know that's Karen Hahn and her group, and I did not mean to leave you out. That was not my intention either. Forgive me, I've only been here 2 months. Yes.
Joel, your first point about what the SPC didn't do, did I understand you correctly, you said that we didn't look at the qualities needed in the next pastor? Well, we couldn't do that, we had a pastor.
Well, that's the point I made. I was being more than obvious, and I'm so glad you raised it, because I was going to address that with you. You couldn't do that, could you? You had a pastor, but you see, now we don't. And so we don't have a choice. That's work that needs to be done. It was a great comment, and I couldn't have had a better, you'll pick up your $50 in your you helped me confirm the very reason I brought it up. Thank you. Other questions, comments? Again, if some of you need to boogie, please go ahead, because we're winding down. This is just the beginning. Dick?
Yes. Something a little different.
Okay.
Something a little different.
Okay.
People were here a couple of weeks ago for the service when the preacher came down the aisle and was sprinkling us all. Did that not kind of denote new energy, more more joy? What do you think? You know, you could almost be going, hallelujah. You know, praise Jesus.
Let's go, brother.
Go, yes, tell it all. It was just wonderful. And part of what Joel said as he came down there was, you know, he's walking down and he was creating a sense of urgency within us, because it's not that we've stagnated, but needed a sense of urgency. That's what, and he said, so we've got to make it snappy. I want it snappy. Well, now we got it snappy.
Hot
And it matches his mask too.
I appreciate that so much. Questions, other comments? I welcome your feedback, but tonight's probably not good for us to be in close proximity to one another. Email me, text me, talk to me. Good Lord willing, I'll be here Sunday, because I'm looking forward to being here. It's hard not to preach, but Bill Puckett, thank you. Go in peace and serve the Lord in gladness. Thank you for coming. And come on back to Wednesday nights. We need you. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Hey.